Good afternoon and welcome to Menergene and the Intervolta wrap for the week of the 26th of February. A lot going on up to the last minute here. We're still waiting for the Constitutional Court, who are expected to rule sometime, well, fairly soon, regarding the legitimacy or not of the referendum that Uribe wants in order to run again in 2010. The media seems fairly convinced that they're going to vote against him, and quite heavily. 7-2 is what we're hearing. On that basis, the supporters of Uribe last night held a meeting, or a dinner, much nicer, to discuss who they were going to support, and there was no real surprise that Juan Manuel Santos will be their man. What remains to be seen is whether Uribe will fully back him. If they do, then Santos has to be a pretty odds-on favourite to win the election eventually. Although for investors, the important thing to note is whether it's Santos, whether it's Sanin, or one or two other candidates, there's very unlikely to be any change in overall policy towards business or security, which is the essential thing here. We're also waiting around right now for the central bank's decision. 3.5% is sure to stay at that level. Obviously the commentary will be more interesting, what effects they're seeing from El Nino on CPI and other things that are concerning them generally. Overnight we had the retail sales numbers and industrial production numbers out for December. Retail sales rose 2.7%, just shy of consensus. To be absolutely honest, I was expecting something a little bit better, but it wasn't to be. But it's positive again, and once again we're seeing the effect of vehicle sales. Without vehicle sales, they're only 2%. So we're getting back to the situation where vehicles get important for retail sales. Industrial production came in at 2%. I think the important thing to note here is that fourth quarter industrial production for last year was the first rise since the first quarter of 2008. So industrial production, it's a slow burn, but we're getting back on track. Unemployment just came out as well. Came out at 12.3%, which is up from 11.9% this time last year. Although unemployment keeps going up, it's important to note the amount of people actually employed this year is 1 million higher than the same time last year. That's owing to a very, very young population here, and they continue coming into the employment market, which is good for the pension funds, obviously. We're receiving more and more officially employed people. Beyond that, looking at the stock market, it hasn't done very much this week. To say it hasn't done very much, the whole cap actually touched an all-time high, but it's moving at a very slow pace. Volumes have been good to slightly above average. The test market has been under a bit of stress still. Yields are currently at 9.09%. They're a little bit concerned about the election. They're concerned about financing still. They're concerned about maybe the government having to sell more test bonds down the road. The peso, conversely, has actually been very strong. It's going to close the week around 1930, and every time it weakens off, there seems to be buyers in the market. On the corporate front, it's results week, obviously. Let's start with Argos. Their numbers were hampered heavily by the US, which actually had a negative EBITDA margin. Caribbean had a very high EBITDA margin, but that was a one-off according to them. Colombia remains in a very solid situation. The results were okay, but the US really continues to drag on the company. They have a lot of projects coming forward for 2010. There's a lot of impending news. We still feel confident about the company, but we'd like to hear a little more about what they're doing. Pacific Rubiales, they announced a 34% increase in their 2P reserves. The stock's been very strong over the last few sessions. There's been a lot of analysts upgrading their numbers, pushing the price targets up. So the stock still seems to be very much in favour, and we still see locals buying that and maybe selling down some of the Ecopetrol position. ETB reported, as they reported recently, the internet business is doing well. Fixed line and traditional business are doing poorly. They reversed provisions as we expected, but they then promptly took those provisions and paid down any debt in their cellular company at Tigo. We would anticipate that they're doing that in order to have a cleaner balance sheet for any strategic investor. A strategic investor may or not be TEF, or may or not be Telmex. No one's making it clear, and the stock is jumping up and down according to every single rumour. Exito, stock's doing a little bit better. It had a big trade yesterday, 3 million shares traded. We're not sure who traded that or from where. Stock itself is a little bit better today, obviously bouncing back from the trade, but also Walmart are again talking about entering the market, and obviously there'll be speculators thinking that maybe they'll look at Exito. Grupo Sura reported a spectacular set of numbers. Investments are up, mark to market, everything was up. Their new book value is over 30,000 pesos. It's only trading at 26,500 pesos right now, so that was a good set of numbers for them. That's really about it for Menergene. Obviously, everyone's waiting around for the Constitutional Court. We're waiting around for the central bank. In terms of the weather, everyone's been talking about El Nino possibly pushing into April, but weather seems to be breaking somewhat here, at least in Antioquia. So we'll wait and see, and we'll keep you posted. So that's everything from Menergene. Have a very good weekend, everyone.